So this is I don't know, controversial or difficult, strange one to talk about, but it's something that I've been thinking, and it's hard to think because it's hard to know what other people are thinking. So I'm just gonna get it like off my chest right away. But I have realized over the past year, 2 years, that most people are not conscious actors or not cognitively there. Most people are, for lack of a better word, just sort of human robots, or the meme that was on the right wing and then on the left wing and it's batted around as the NPC, the non-player character. But the more I've looked into it and the more I've thought about it, and frankly, the more I've interacted with people, the more I've come to see that it is the case that the majority of people aren't there. And when I say that, I don't mean that they're stupid, or I don't mean that they're non-human. It's that they lack an internal monologue. They lack thought. And these are the people that make up the majority of the population. They're like the filler, almost. Which sounds horrible to say because they're human beings. We're all human beings, and it's not like they are stuck in this role. This is just almost like they're sleepwalking, or like robotic, just going through the motions, and no one ever stops to think about why. So this is starting to sound like a strange viewpoint, and I don't want it to be that way. It's not like I don't think that people are not real or don't have thoughts or aren't capable of thought or anything like that. So it's hard to articulate. So give me a second here. And this is why I said it's going to be controversial. Because I'm basically stating that I came to a conclusion that everybody is a non-human robot, or a human robot. But if you stick with me, I think we can get there. And I think that if you're watching this or listening to this, you're probably not one of these people anyway. So, side the point. So let's look at an example that sticks out to me, and this is where I sort of started to come into this. It was 2 weeks ago now. I got on the elevator, and it was early in the morning. I dropped my car off at the service center. I gotta drive back to the apartment because car was being funky, whatever. And the elevators, we have 3 elevators in my building, and 2 of them were out of service. One was being cleaned and one was just broken. So I'm waiting in the lobby for a while for an elevator, and one came. And it had 2 people on it. And because of COVID, and because of the COVID rules or guidelines or whatever, it's, I guess, in this person's mind, or I mean, technically they're right, but it's also they're wrong. There's only supposed to be 2 people on an elevator at a time. But I wasn't like going to just stand there for the next 20 minutes waiting for an elevator. I mean, yes, I could take the stairs, but it's like 7:30 in the morning. I'm not feeling well. His car's busted, whatever. So I got on the elevator. So buddy's like, "Oh, you can't get on." It's against the rules. And I'm like, don't worry, I have a mask. We're all wearing masks. It's 3 people on an elevator now instead of 2. So has it really changed anything? Like, is it way more dangerous now that I'm on the elevator? I mean, I've already stepped on the elevator, so you're exposed to me at this point, so we're all in it together. So let's just close the door and go. But he's like, no. It's against the rules. And I'm like, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, there's 3 of us. I can understand if it was a crammed elevator and I was shutting myself on, but there's 3 of us instead of 2 of us, and me coming on the elevator literally changes nothing. Like, the equation doesn't change. It's not like you went from not having COVID to all of a sudden now I'm on the elevator, so all of a sudden COVID is just going to hit you. That's not how it works. People are just so out to lunch. No one thinks. So then I tell him I'm vaccinated against COVID, and he's like, well, that doesn't matter because it's the rules. The rules say 2, and there's 3. And I'm like, but the other elevators are broken. The rules or whatever. Rules are just rules. Who like actually, I don't know, follows rules? That's the other thing. So that, anyway, Buddy and I, he was trying to get me off the elevator. I was like, I'm just gonna stay on. He's not letting it go, whatever. And long and short of it, he ended up standing in the lobby and I took the elevator up. But I'm like, we could all rode in it together. It didn't change anything. Like 3 people or 2 people. It's the same. It doesn't make any sense. But in his mind, because it was a rule that there was only 2 allowed on the elevator, that is the rule. And you have to follow the rules. And that is where this sort of set me off in that thinking down the train of this sort of non-player character, this NPC mindset that people have where they just blindly follow rules, blindly follow laws, blindly follow everything, and they're always looking for something to follow. People aren't taking time to formulate their own thoughts or formulate their own beliefs or come to their own conclusions. Everyone just wants to be told what to do. And that's what I see. That's what I've seen. And it's confusing to me. It's upsetting. I always thought that people were kind of like me, where you thought about what you did or did not do or wanted to do or didn't want to do and acted accordingly, and rules and laws and whatever were just sort of nuisances that got in the way. It wasn't like it wasn't like the law meant anything, It just made it like harder to do something. So, and I thought everyone thought like that, but that's not how people think. People look for laws and look for guidance from the government or from power and from granted power. Like, people are so willing to just cede their own independence and freedom and thought over to larger organizations because they can't be bothered to think for themselves, or they don't. I don't know. That's where I sort of bump up. I don't know why people are like that. And it's strange to me. It really, really is strange to me that somebody would just blindly follow rules and not actually rationalize them or figure them out. And it's just mind-boggling. And that's where I think that you're basically a robot at that point, because you're given a set of instructions and you follow it, and you keep following it and you keep moving, and that's your life, and you do what you're told. Go to work, have kids, buy a house, retire, die, and that's follow the path laid out for you. And that's strange, so strange. Yeah, it's strange. People are constantly looking for this like set of rules or guidelines or guidance to follow, and no one ever like considers why there's rules, or like rationalizes it out, and everyone is just like, that's the law, that's the rule, that's what you follow, that's what you do. And it's just, why, even with like, and it's not everyone, it's not your fault, like it's no one's fault. Like society is built to generate this kind of blind following mentality, like school and education and work and everything. It's all just designed to develop this blind following mindset, because that is, I guess, the way you maintain power structures, is by creating an army of just blind followers. So you no longer have people having original thoughts. They just repeat what celebrities say or what the news says, and they follow the law and they follow rules and guidelines, and if their guy says it's fine, it's fine. And in politics, and if the bad guy says it's bad, it's bad. And no one stops to actually friggin' think and be independent and be a human being. Like, be a free human being is what it comes down to, because we're just, I guess, conditioned and ingrained to be these, following machines, because it makes you a nice little productive consumer, a nice little productive worker. Go to your job, generate revenue for the big guys, and spend money to generate revenue for the big guys, and you just mosey on your way, you little mouse. Like, you're just a robot, you're just a number, you're nothing to them. And people just kind of go along with it, and no one ever stops. I shouldn't say no one, but not a lot of people stop to think why, or stop to think how, or stop to think of alternatives. And that's how you end up with this NPC, non-player character kind of mindset or mentality that I've been running into a lot lately and noticing a lot lately, where people don't have internal monologues, people don't have internal thought, people don't have consciousness developed beyond much more than an animal. And that is what power structures want. They don't want people that can think and rationalize and come to their own conclusions. They want people that will just do what they're told. So a good example being, when you talk about laws, COVID is the topical example, where literally people won't go over to their friend's house because the government said you can't have more than 2 people in a house, or in a gathering it has to be all the same household or less than 4. And people are just like, that's the rules, just follow it. And you want to gather and meet and actually talk to someone, people are like, well, no, I gotta follow the rules. And that's strange. Like, why? I'm negative, you're negative, we don't have any symptoms. What is us meeting together in terms of risk gonna cause? Nothing. It's just, but that's the rule, sir. People are like, well, I don't want to get in trouble, so they just follow the rule, and no one thinks about the logic behind it. Or getting back to that elevator example, it's like there's no rationality to 2 versus 3 people being on the elevator, but it's the rule. So this guy couldn't wrap his head around violating the rule. And you see it, you extend it to anything. It's like with drug law in Canada, where I'm from, marijuana was illegal for, I don't even know how many years, I don't have it in front of me, but up until 2017, 16, I can't remember when legalization happened. But basically, there are literally people that never considered trying smoking marijuana until the government said it's legal. And now they're like, cool, now I can do it. And it's like, do you really just let the government dictate what you can put in your body and what you can put in your mind? And when you tell people, like, any drug or any substance, and they're like, well, I don't want to do it because that's illegal. And it's like, what? Like, who cares? I don't understand. Like you just let other people just dictate your life to that degree? It makes no sense. And you see it with everything. You see it with everybody just following along with these, like, stupid rules or stupid laws and guidelines, and nobody thinks about the implication, or nobody thinks about why this is the way it is and why we're doing something the way we're doing it. Like, another example, and this one, at the risk of sounding, like crazy conservative gun nut person, is firearm law. Like, you see it in the gun community all the time. Is everybody is out, we're enjoying a hobby, shooting guns, having fun, and when the government says, hey, now you're no longer allowed to own this gun, you see all these people just lining up to hand it in. And it's like, why? like what changed? Like, seriously, wrap your head around it. Like how can you let some authority just dictate your life like that? How can you let some authority tell you what you can and cannot do? Like, think about things for yourself and come to your own conclusion. And that's where I don't understand. And that's why I think everybody, or the majority of people, are just these non-thinking machines. Because, frankly, they've just shown it by just blindly following every rule and law and guideline because it's a rule or a law or a guideline, and never stopping to think about why or how to do something different or alternatives or whatever, So strange. So that's the NPC thing to me. And I think it comes back to this core thing that I always harp on, which is the self-governance and the freedom and the being your own person and thinking for yourself. And that's the gist of it. I'm not saying that agreeing with celebrities makes you an NPC. And I'm not saying that going along with the crowd makes you an NPC, but I'm saying that examine your decisions and why you do things the way you do. Take some time to think about it. Take some time to think about why you don't do something or why you would do something, and come to your own conclusions and make your own choices. And who cares what the fucking government says? Who cares what the rules say? Just live. And, you know, if it's illegal, try not to get caught, because that just puts you in a world of hurt. But at the end of the day, who gives a shit? If you're not hurting anybody, just do it. Just live. And do what you want to do. As long as you're not hurting anybody, and as long as you're not, you know, infringing on someone else's freedom, get out there and do what you want. You want to fucking do drugs, do drugs. You want to start a business without a license, start a business without a license. That's another thing. Like, you see people like, oh, I would love to start a bookstore, but there's so much fucking, or a business, but there's so much paperwork. There isn't. Guess what? Hey, you want to buy this book? Cool. I'll sell it to you. Bookstore. Boom. What's the government layer on top of things? You know? Like, why do we have to deal with that shit? Like, just do it. And that's where a lot of people just get caught up. Like, what was it? It was, someone was talking about getting a reel. An actor wanted his scene from a movie, and, you know, he's a small actor and a small part in the movie, and I guess whatever, the production company didn't give it, but he wanted to add it to his reel. And people in the forums were like talking about like how to go about copyright law and legality and all this other bullshit. And I was like, dude, just fucking download the movie and cut your portion out and put it in. Gives a shit if it's legal. Like, you know, it's just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And actually, in that case, I actually helped the guy, and we did it. And we downloaded, I set him up, and he got his reel, and good. He didn't know how to do it from a technical standpoint, so I did it technically for him, but he was down for doing it. But I'm like, you read all these replies, and everyone's going about, like, copyright law and fucking contacting this person to get a release and all this bullshit. And I'm like, it's a 4-minute clip from a movie where he has like 10 lines. What the fuck? For a reel. It's not like he's premiering it. He's using it to add to his resume, essentially. And people are like debating the copyright law. And I'm like, fuck that. Like, nobody thinks. Everybody just follows. And it just blows my mind. And that's what I mean when I talk about this NPC or this or this human robot, is that everybody just looks for rules to follow or guidance or power to tell them what to do. And nobody seems to want to just take the reins of their own life. So if that offends you or upsets you or whatever, then I guess it does. And fuck you. You know, like, so what? If you're offended, what are you going to do? You can't attack me because that's against the rules. So get over yourself. Like, what do you can't... I called you a robot. If you assault me, that's against the law. It breaks your programming, you fucking robot. So get mad. Break the rules. Think for yourself. Anyway, fuck. I don't hate people. I really don't. I think everybody has this potential. Everyone has the potential to become liberated. It's just... it takes work. And it takes time, and it takes sort of waking people up. And I don't know how you do that. And I'm starting to sound like a fucking crazy person. Alex Jones, conspiracy theorist, nightmare, but it really is like people are asleep. And nobody wants to think for themselves. So if you're watching this or you made it this far, you know, thanks. I assume if you made it this far, you're probably thinking for yourself, so you're a step ahead. But try to spread that. Try to get people around you to rationally come to their own conclusions. If you're a parent, raise your kids in a way that they think for themselves. Don't tell them to do something because I said so. Give them a reason. Explain to them why. And provide your rationality for them, asking them to do whatever. Don't just give them this authoritarian because I said so. Teach your kids to think. And then hopefully we can undo some of this fucking programming, because everybody's just out to lunch. I don't get it. Fuck, what do I know? I'm just a fucking loser. Thanks for listening, and I will ramble another time. And also this camera angle is probably going to be switched, but I thought it was neat, so